The Esports World Cup qualifiers continue tomorrow. Today I'm going to be previewing all 4 heats, giving my takes on which duos are going to make Sunday's finals. We also need to go over all the big teams that missed out on heats altogether. We have the news that MrSavage and Rezon have now officially split, and we now know the location of the next Fortnite LAN. Let's get straight into it. So let's start by taking a look at Heat 1. So the format for all of these heats, there are 20 teams in the lobby, and the top 5 duos will qualify for Sunday's finals. And I believe that the most locked team to qualify in this heat is of course Vico and Malabuka. They have the right side of Slurpy Swamp completely uncontested, and if you've watched a lot of Reload, you'll know that that is a recipe for success. The POI's central positioning, the amount of loop, the amount of slurp, you can't really go wrong from that sort of situation, and Vico and Malabuka are the best team in this lobby, and they proved that with their play-ins performance coming first in that round. If you don't know, the play-ins had the top 2,000 teams from opens, and that was whittled down to the top 80 for this heats round. Vico and Malabuka actually won the play-ins last time out as well in qualifier 1, so they are proving that they do understand how to play Reload. Yes, it didn't quite go to plan for them in the last finals. They only managed 14th in qualifier 1, but listen, I've got no doubts they're going to make it out of this heat. I'm 100% confident in them. Vico actually had the most damage and the most eliminations in the play-ins round, proving that he is a very explosive player. They have now returned to form after a little bit of a blip last week. They're back to what they're good at, and yeah, they're going to make it. In second place, I've gone for Prism and Casper. Now, this team were actually quite good during the last qualifier. They did make finals. Unfortunately, they were contested over at Fort Crumpet, so they were only able to manage a 15th place. They actually were uncon in the first 2 games, and they were second after that point, but it all just kind of fell apart. Listen, this is a team that have been looking really good lately. They definitely struggled during the last chapter with the switch to trios, but now that duos is back, they are looking great again, and they do have an uncontested spot in this heat. They're landing at the docks south of Steamy Stacks. I do believe they will make the top 5. Another duo that did well in the last qualifier is Wavy and Josh. They actually managed 10th place in finals, and whilst they don't have the most exciting area on this heats map, I do think they are going to qualify in the top 5 purely based on that previous history. They're landing at the split north of the map. Yes, that's quite a weak area, but listen, we've seen them perform once. I'm sure they can do it again. Another team that did really well in the last Reload Elite Series but may struggle a little bit here is Mumsy and Sato. Now, I've got them in the top 5 provisionally. I am a little bit concerned about their drop spot situation. They are seemingly contested at Dirty Docks by Artskill and Izzy. I'm aware that's another French team. I don't know whether they're going to split or whether they're going to contest. That remains to be seen. Assuming that they do split, because there is so much loot at that POI, I do believe that Mumsy and Sato should be qualifying for the finals. They did of course come 4th in the previous qualifier, narrowly missing out on qualification for the LAN. We all know their quality, and if they do split the POI, then they will qualify. And my final pick to qualify is Cheatin and Yanis. They have Logjam uncontested. Team of that quality, they should be making it. In terms of honourable mentions, Khan and Faded, and for Strokey and Bevies both have really good shots of qualifying. Seti and Dinas also would be in the top 5 if it wasn't for the fact that they are contested over at Fort Crumpet. If they do become uncontested before the finals, then I'll definitely add them into my top 5. Please check out my Twitter tomorrow, where I'll be doing my 100% locked official predictions with the most up-to-date maps. Now let's get into Heat 2, which might be the hardest one to predict. The first team I've got to qualify is of course Focus and Thomas HD. Now these guys didn't have the easiest time in the previous heats because they were of course contested by Queasy and Swizzy. They actually did okay all things considered, coming in 7th, narrowly missing out on that top 5, whilst Queasy and Swizzy only managed an 18th. But listen, this time round they are uncontested at Fort Crumpet, and with that I don't think there's any doubts that they're going to qualify. The next team I've got is the one that came 2nd in the play-ins round, and that is of course Vanya and Wox. Now listen, these guys haven't been in the greatest form lately. It's been a while since either of them had a particularly meaningful placement, but with that being said, you can't deny their quality, and they did do well in the play-ins. Presuming that they do split Steamy Stacks as the map suggests, then I do believe they can qualify. The next team I've got is Fochka and Adrix, and you might be a little bit surprised by this one. Listen, listen, I just really rate these guys. They're an up-and-coming Polish duo. I've seen a lot of them. Fochko was previously doing very well with Trucio. They then split, which did shock me a little bit, but listen, Fochko and Adrix, it's two good players landing at that split north of Steamy Stacks. Provided that they don't get victimized by all the teams landing at Slurpee, then I do think they can qualify as an outside pick. The next two teams that I think will qualify are Akira and Karama and Werex and Nosif, and if you take a look at the map, you'll notice that they are both landing at Dirty Docks. Now, I'd be very surprised if they didn't split this POI. Obviously, there's so much loot, and they are, of course, ex-teammates. Well, I say ex-teammates. Akira and Karama have somewhat split up. It's up in the air as to whether or not that is permanent. Akira is currently playing with Rax, whilst Karama is currently playing with Werex, who is on the other team. So definitely a bit of a confusing situation there, but I think what we can probably guarantee is that they will split, and two teams of that quality, I think if they split, they both make it through. I would probably give the edge to Akira and Karama, but with a top 5 format and with the quality of this lobby, I think they can both make it. In terms of honourable mentions, we've got Trulex and Chicho, a team that I do rate. I'm just not quite sure they've got the firepower to make it into the top 5. Pradaj and Gonzo are landing at Slurpee Swamp. I do just worry that with all the teams landing there, with the possibility of them getting griefed by teams dropping at Slurpee for a big game, I just think they all might cancel each other out. I'm just not sure I can see anyone doing well from there. And we've also got Cringe and Volko, who are now contested at Logjam. If they were Uncon, I'd have them in the top 5. It's the same story with Skyjump and Dew. They are contested over at Booming Base by Ricky and Zangi. Either one of those teams could qualify if they were Uncon. Now, the next two heats are so much more stacked. They are full of top teams, and you'll see that with Heat 3. The first team I've got to qualify is Swizzy and Pixie. Uncontested at the right side of Slurpee Swamp, I mean, yes, there might be some teams that will land on them and potentially grief them, but this is Swizzy and Pixie we're talking about here. They are going to qualify. No doubts about that. Next up, I've got Sky and Scroll, one of the 3 duos that are already qualified for the Esports World Cup LAN in August. They were initially going to be contested at Booming Base by Nero and Joshbot. They do now have it Uncon, and with that, I see no doubts that they're going to qualify for their second finals. I've also put Dharm and Demus in this list. They've got Fort Crumpet uncontested. Kami and Hari too. They've got the Lighthouse. Both of those duos should be making it. They've got too much quality. And the 5th spot is a little bit of a tough one. I've gone for an underrated pick. That's Truly and Zynox. Now, these guys have been looking good lately. In the last Divisional Cup, they actually managed a 6th place finish, which impressed me a lot. And yes, I know that Ping and Kiro are in this lobby, and they do have a portion of Steamy Stacks uncontested. There's a chance that over there they could get griefed by the other team. I just think that Truly and Zynox, the fact that they have Stilttown Uncon, the fact they've been in good form, they are my underrated pick to make it through. But listen, that could change by tomorrow. We'll have to wait and see. In terms of another honourable mention, we've got Howley and Lucia. They have uncontested Logjam, and I could easily see them qualifying too. But of course, this heat is very stacked, so it is going to be a tough one. And finally, let's talk about Heat 4. This one contains the other 2 teams that have already qualified for the LAN. They are, of course, Shark and Teeny, and Chino and Pablo Wingu, and I have got them both in my list to qualify. Shark and Teeny are actually contested over at Dirty Docks, but honestly, they have so much quality about them. They're so good off spawn, they're so good at fighting that in the reload format where you can just respawn constantly, I don't even think it's going to be a problem for them. I think they are going to make it sort of no matter what situation they're in. They are that good. Chino and Pablo Wingu have uncontested Logjam, and they should have no issues from there. I've also put Chap and Flixie down to qualify with uncontested Slurpee left side. Again, I'd just be unbelievably shocked if they didn't make it. Azet Goat and iFrozy have uncontested Fort Crumpet. I believe they are good enough to make it from that POI. They're a duo that have shown a lot of chemistry in the past. Yes, their placements lately haven't been too great, if I'm being honest, but we do know their quality. And finally, I've gone for Yapko and Panzer. They are splitting Steamy Stacks with Gold and Sanya, providing that they don't get griefed, providing that there's no off-spawn fighting. I do believe that Yapko and Panzer, the defending Divisional Cup champions, should be able to make it. And in terms of honourable mentions, we've got Pink and Haris, who are uncontested at Booming Base. I very nearly put them in the top 5, and honestly, I could potentially change my my mind by tomorrow. We'll have to see how it goes. I've got Kashi and Fyron, an underrated pick who are landing at the Lighthouse, and also Gordetti and Yarko. You might be surprised that I've not put them in. They are a very good Spanish duo, and they do currently have the right side of Slurpee Swamp uncontested. The reason I've not put them is because I just don't believe it's going to stay like that. I'm fully convinced that during the tournament, teams will drop there. They will drop on them in order to have a comeback game if they are struggling. Yeah, there's no way that Gordetti and Yarko get the right side of Slurpee Swamp uncontested for 8 games. It's just simply not going to happen, and because of that, they are not in my top 5. So those are my Heats predictions. Let me know in the comment section whether you agree or disagree. Which teams do you think are going to make it? Who do you think might struggle? I always want to know what you guys think. In terms of the big duos that missed out, it is quite a long list. Queasy and Murstache not making it. Go back and watch some of my previous videos if you want some analysis on that, because I have spoken in depth about how I am a little bit concerned about their lack of performance lately, and it's the same story with Savage and Mixon and Mongrel and Turtle, neither of them able to make the top 80. Eyedrop and Marius failed to qualify. They came 81st in the play-ins round, missing out by only 1 place, unfortunate for them. In terms of other big duos that failed to make it, we had Tayson and Skavi, Kombek and Blaha, Giras and Synod, Moneymaker and Fanayan, The Deal and Noah Rayleigh, and of course Pix and Rax, a team that has already split. For quite a few of these players, they haven't been able to make either one of the Esports World Cup Heats, but because of the format, that isn't the end of the world. It is only the top 3 teams from the finals that qualify, which means that you could come 4th in every single qualifier and it would mean nothing. All that matters is having that one solid qualifier where you get into the top 3. So it is by no means over for any of these teams that are struggling, but with a couple of these big names, we definitely need to see some performances sooner rather than later. Now let's talk about the news that the Summit LAN will be hosted in Germany, more specifically in the city of Dusseldorf. This definitely isn't a surprise. In yesterday's video, when I was going over all the options for where it could be hosted, I did say that Germany was my prediction, and that has come true. Dusseldorf is an interesting choice. It wasn't the city that I was expecting. I would have thought it would be Berlin or Frankfurt, which kind of have a lot of Fortnite connections in terms of that's where the servers have been, or that's where we've had boot camps before. But listen, Dusseldorf is apparently a very nice city. I did put out a tweet asking for any thoughts on it, and I'll put some of the comments here up on screen because a lot of them are very positive. It looks like it is going to be a fun LAN. It will have a lot of passion, hopefully, just like Globals in Lyon. I'm very excited for the LAN. I'm glad we have a new country hosting, and of course a little bit of bias from me, but I'm glad it's a European one too. As a little reminder, the way that you qualify for this event is finishing in the top 20 teams in Major 1, so we will see 20 European duos represented at this event, which I do think is going to be awesome. Yeah, super excited for it. And finally, let's talk about the fact that MrSavage and Rezon have 100% split. It is official. Rezon put out a tweet saying that he will now be playing with Prax and he wants to learn to be an IGL instead. He did mention that he felt like the reactions from Savage's community, some of the negative messages that were going around, did contribute to his decision to split with Savage, which is understandable. This is something that a lot of Savage's previous teammates have spoken about. The pressure from chat, the pressure from his community really does affect their performance, affect their enjoyment, and this is really something that Savage might have to address because it really does seem to be putting off a lot of teammates. In terms of Savage's future options, I do think it will be beneficial for him if he plays with someone outside of his immediate circle. I do wonder whether he's going to end up on a double IGL type of duo. If you look at his recent teammates, he's been playing with guys like Tayson, guys like Yapko, and they have had very, very fluid dynamics together, constantly switching who's leading. During the end games, they're kind of taking over tarps. You never really know who's the one in charge. It's very, very fluid. And Savage seems to thrive in that kind of system. I wonder if he could end up playing with someone like a Fredoxy if he decides to actually start placing well again. Maybe if Eyedrop and Marius split, we could see the return of Savage and Eyedrop. I mean, these are just suggestions. If I'm being honest, I'm not 100% sure it could happen. We really don't have any idea who he's going to play with, but it will be interesting to see. And as soon as we know, you guys will be the first to hear about it in the EU review. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any European Fortnite news. If you want to support me any further, then using code SPUDSON in the Fortnite item shop is a great way to do that. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.